We're back, people, and today we got another video going over the Miami Dolphins defensive line and how I think that front four will carry the defense to success during this 2025 season. Dolphins have a lot of questions in the secondary, but that defensive front, I think, is easily the strength of the team just in general. Like, it's very, very good. You also could maybe even throw a little bit of the like Jordan Brooks into the mix with some of the stuff we're going to talk about. But I go back to this Anthony Weaver quote where he talked about having the requisite girth up front. And I think that's a big reason, you saw them bring in a guy like Kenneth Grant because having guys up front that are that big and that athletic that can take on double teams, just with the nature of what the NFL is like nowadays, it's huge to help out linebackers because you need linebackers that can cover a lot of ground and, have that type of range, make plays in coverage, but also make plays versus the runs with lighter boxes. So you got to be able to have guys up front that can take up space and keep those guys free, because usually if they're covering more ground, they're typically a little more athletic, a little lighter. Then you have guys like Jordan Brooks that are making plays off of that. It's a huge help. And if you are able to do the early stuff like stop the run, then you have these guys up front that we're going to talk about all of them that can pin their ears back and get after the quarterback, especially your edge defenders, because I think edge is the most important position on defense. And it's like the one position that, like, yeah, I can get schemed out of games at times, but there will be games where like they can take over by themselves. Like, it's the one position where you just take over a game and kind of win it and be really dominant for the defense. Weaver also plays a huge part in this because Weaver, former defensive line coach, really good at getting pressure with just four. So, like, yes, the Dolphins have a lot of guys that can win up on the front one-on-one. So, like, having all those guys, somebody's going to get one-on-one looks, having those edges come back. But then there's also the stunt and twist aspect, as Weaver loves using twists and stunts, and they were very, very effective. And your D-line and edge group are also really good at it. Like, we've seen the effectiveness from Chop and Phillips doing it. Chubb can also do it quite effectively. And then your D-line, Zach Sealer and Kenneth Grant are going to be phenomenal in that area. I think, some of the backups like Jordan Phillips, Benito Jones, they can do some stuff versus the run, which is nice, I think, year one. But Grant and Sealer being the guys that really can get after the quarterback and also create opportunities for others to get after the quarterback. So I think, going through guys one by one, Sealer, truly an elite player on the team. All of those guys, all your starters, except maybe Grant, like the three edges, Chop, Chubb, Phillips, and Sealer, all like top 10 players on the Dolphins. And then Grant is a first round pick, so you can't really rank him yet, but he could easily work himself into that conversation. Like, it wouldn't, that's not like that far out of the realm of possibilities. Up front, Chop was one of your best players last year, second year guy. You have a lot of Chop and Grant are like the future of the team, but also like a big part of winning now for you. Chop was absolutely dominant getting after the pass rusher, and I think having Phillips and Chubb, which I think Chubb is going to return to 100% form. He's 2 years off the injury. It seems like he's back to full health, which is huge. Having just another threat, because they didn't have another threat on the edge that could create pressure, and Chubb was getting a lot of double teams, and there was times they were able to work away from him. Teams were able to run the ball. Like, if you look at the Packers game, they were able to neutralize Chubb, not from like actually beating him, but like they were able to run the ball, get the ball quickly, and then double team him in situations where they actually had to block for more than a couple seconds. But yeah, and then getting Phillips back, even if Phillips isn't 100%, just having that rotation, keeping people fresh, and having three guys at the most like important position that can just like take over games is a huge, huge help. Like, it's going to be very helpful in a lot of games and will take a lot of pressure off of the secondary, which if you look at it on paper, the secondary could be seen as like the weakest secondary in the league. I think they'll probably perform better than expectations, but they still will have games where, like, if teams are able to, scheme well up front against Miami, then the Dolphins will struggle in the secondary for sure. But yeah, that's super helpful. And then you have, Sealer and Grant, who we talked about, who I think will definitely do a good job in that twist stunt game. They'll also create their own pressures. Sealer's the only D tackle in the league with 10 plus sacks in the last 2 seasons. And then, Grant, it's very hard to find guys that are that big, that can play like nose, but then also play 3-tech, that are that athletic, move that well. And then those guys will help you stop the run, and then it will help you allow your edge to just pin, because like you stop the run and first down, you get to like second and long, third and long situations. That's when edges can take over games. They can really just get after it. And you're able to marry that like all the different stuff you're doing up front, like whether it's just getting after the quarterback, using stunts. Dolphins will bring like different zone pressures where maybe a guy drops, like, you have you chop drop and then Jordan Brooks blitzes. Brooks works into this conversation too because he's another guy that will help in that area. Like there's clips of him and Sealer working stunts together versus the Texans and working it very well. In the Niners, Brooks and Chop creating after the quarterback. But then doing those type of things and then marrying it with your coverage calls, which the Dolphins, like, you're not going to always be asking them to do like crazy stuff in the secondary, especially with talent. But you're going to ask them to like disguise coverages. So it's less about like maybe talent wise and more about like your mental processing and understanding of what you're asked to do out there and just being in the right spot initially with your coverage rotation. So then the QB just has to hold on to that ball just for an extra half second. And so especially when you face QBs that are indecisive, you can really take advantage. And even like I looked at the Rams game last year, Weaver called a masterclass. You went against a really good quarterback who did actually a really good job of not getting like sacked in that game, but you were still able to hold the Rams to 5 field goals because it was just forced to take check down after check down because of all the coverage rotations on the back end. And then when he was able to just hold on to the ball an extra split second, then you get after him, and really, really good job with a lot of that time, with a lot of that stuff. So while this is like super important for the team now, this is also the future of the team. The Dolphins have put a lot of resources in this in the McDaniel era and the Weaver era, because Weaver's been here 2 years now, and the Dolphins only had 2 first-round picks, and they were both when Weaver was here. They were both used on the front 4, Chop Robinson, Kenneth Grant, and I have really high hopes for both of them. Chop's already shown a lot. Kenneth Grant is going to be a big part of this team. He's going to play a lot of snaps, and it's going to be a lot of fun to watch how these guys can really, I think, put the team on their back and help out the secondary. So I have a lot of high hopes for the Miami Dolphins defense. Hopefully, I think for the offense, it's less about, a certain unit carrying you, because I think the offense overall is actually pretty well-rounded, except maybe like the tight end group. The offense is more about staying healthy at the QB and I think O-line positions. If your QB and O-line stays healthy, I think, I feel pretty confident about the offense. Defense, it's like, get on the defensive line's back and hope they carry you to success, which I think they definitely will in some games. But now it will be consistent. It's not going to be in every game either. Like, you're going to have games where it's a rough showing just all around on both sides of the ball. You're not going to be perfect. No team's perfect like that. But yeah, really excited for that. I think Anthony Weaver did a really good job last year, and especially in 2 specific areas, which was post-snap coverage rotations, which I made a video about Anthony Weaver. Check that out. And I mainly went over that. But this one, mainly talking about the ability up front to create pressure with just 4. And the Dolphins were able to do that pretty effectively last season with really, only one edge that could actually get pressure by himself, and that was Chop. The other edges didn't really get pressure, like Ogba, like all his pressure and sacks came off of stunts. And then you have guys up front like Sealer and Grant can create pressure off twists and stunts, but can also, I think, create pressure just on their own one-on-one situations. They have that type of talent. And then you add Chubb and Phillips back to the mix. And then who knows, maybe you have some promising edges in the back end. Like, you still, potentially, if Quentin Bell comes back, he's not going to be like a pressure guy, but he is probably your best edge at dropping into coverage. He's actually a decent run defender, so there's like decent depth there from that perspective. And then who knows what you'll get out of like Kamara, Grayson, Murphy. Potentially Murphy looks pretty solid if he can show up. Like, he was a high pressure guy in college. So I feel very strong about that group up front. The D tackle group, maybe some question marks depth wise. I think Jordan Phillips will be good for a 5th rounder. Benito Jones is fine. He'll make the team. And then we'll see who else ends up making it up front. But I think starting wise, like, I feel very confident in that group. Sealer's probably a top 3 player on your team, and I think Kenneth Grant will be a quality rookie pretty early on, maybe not instantly, but I do expect pretty good production of that. So thank you guys for watching. If you want early access to videos and other perks, join as a member. It really helps out the channel. Leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll take some time. Peace.